my gosh, that sounds so good. So first time now on the highway with the full bolt-ons for the manual Supra. If you're new to the channel, this is my 2023 Toyota Supra with that 6-speed manual. Got full bolt-ons, high flow cat, AW exhaust. Today we are hitting the Dyno. I am so excited to see what kind of power this car puts out. Now, I'm not too sure with the stock tuning and everything if the bolt-ons make any difference. You know, the ECU might compensate to where it just always only puts out stock power, but I'm excited to see. So let's cruise on out. We got about another hour to go, and let's hit the dyno in the Supra. Shop, and it is now time to get the Supra on the dyno. All right guys, so we are here at SOHO Motorsports. We're gonna do the dyno pulls on the Supra. Now these guys actually specialize in the Nissan cars, a lot of the Zs, the Infinities, and they've worked on my GTR, my old 370 Zs as well, and they tuned my last Toyota Supra, so they do dive into Supra stuff as well. But it'll be exciting to see what kind of power this car is gonna make with the full bolt-ons and that manual transmission. All right, so with the Supra on the dyno now, Nick here is gonna get it all set up and ready to go. So as far as the modifications go, my car is basically full bolt-on stock tuning, obviously 2023 model year with the manual. So we have the Arma-Speed carbon fiber air intake, Keys Motorsports charge pipe, and then we have the MST high flow catted downpipe paired with the AWE resonated touring exhaust. Been an awesome setup so far, and all of these parts are linked on our website down below, so if you want to check them out. And of course, I'll have SOHO Motorsports' website down below as well. I've been working with these guys for so many years, and they've had both of my Zs on the dyno and now both of my Supras on the dyno. So it'll be really interesting to see if any of these bolt-on parts actually make any different with the stock ECU. So he's gonna go ahead and strap it down, and I'm excited to see. I'm definitely excited to hear it because now with the exhaust and everything, I mean, this car sounds so incredibly good. And I can tell you from driving it with all the parts, it definitely wakes up the experience. And then once I do dive into ECU tuning, which of course we have to ship the ECU out, all that sort of thing, we're gonna make some crazy power. But at least with the stock ECU and just the bolt-ons, it'll be fun to see. So he's gonna wrap that up, and then I think it's about time we let her rip. There is some things you gotta do on the gauge cluster. There's a dyno setting you're gonna go through in the dashboard to get the car configured to be just driving the rear wheels with the front wheels not moving. So I'll have to set that up. But let's go ahead and get going. All right, there you go. Baseline run of the manual Supra, 394 wheel horsepower, about 410 wheel torque, which is crazy. The engine from Toyota they are claiming this engine makes like 386 horsepower and about 364 pound-feet of torque. Severely underrated, clearly. And from what I've seen, the manual Supras make about 400 wheel horsepower. So the bolt-on parts don't really add too much with the stock tuning. Of course, once I dive into tuning, we're gonna add like 100 horsepower and torque super easily. But super cool to see what this car is pumping out. And then when I compare this to my old Supra, the white 2020 automatic that I had, that car was making around 350 horsepower and 400 wheel torque. So this new engine does make a solid like 40 or 50 more wheel horsepower. And from what I've seen, the automatics of this make in the mid 380 wheel horsepower. So the manuals put out maybe 10 to 20 more wheel horsepower than the automatic version, which is cool to see. Obviously the gear ratio is a little bit different. Those are all in 4th gear, and it is kind of a humid day out as well. But definitely awesome to see what the manual Supra puts down with the bolt-on parts. I don't think they added too much. I think they may have picked up a little bit of torque over what a bone stock manual would have done, but really cool to see overall. And if you notice, I'm gonna be driving their manual modified Nissan Z in a little bit, making a full video on that. But super fun to see what the Supra can do. Crazy how underrated these engines are from the factory.
2 hours later.
So after a quick detour driving in SOHO's Nissan Z that is all tuned, that was pretty fun. So a stock one, then when they dynoed that car, it makes about 10 wheel horsepower less than my car and about 20 wheel torque less. I'll put the dyno graph up right now. So the Supra definitely has more low end and mid range, but once you get above around 5,000 RPM, they're very similar in power. And when we had that blue manual Z, I mentioned how a little slow down below, but once you get to the top end, I mean, it's freaking fast. So pretty cool to see how this car compares to not only my old white Supra with the automatic and the old engine, but then also with the new Nissan Z. So Supra is slightly faster, a little bit smoother power delivery, but nice to see what the Z can do as well. All right, so back on the road now. I'm excited to dive into the tuning. One thing I'll say about the Supra, especially with the bolt-ons, obviously doesn't really add much power to the wheels since the stock ECU basically is designed to only put out a certain amount of power. It has torque tables, torque limits to where it only puts out stock power. Even though it's gonna be running more efficiently with the modifications and everything, the tuning is where you get all the power in this car. And gosh, it doesn't crave the tuning, I'd say. It is so peppy, so quick stock. I mean, we're talking 400 horsepower and torque to the wheels. That's a healthy engine and power delivery. It's not crazy heavy, and it makes really good power, and it's super smooth. I think the inline 6 does a lot, and when you look at the Nissan Z's dyno graph, that's why it kind of feels a little boggy, a little turbo laggy, I would say, under 4,000 RPM. So the inline motor, it's so good the way it is, and with the mods, it makes the car much more enjoyable. And I am curious about doing a JB4 before I actually dive into the ECU tuning. That's basically a glorified boost controller, and from what I've seen, I could do a conservative setting on it and at least get another 50 horsepower and torque out of it without harming the car, without doing anything too aggressive. I know if you go too crazy with those, you could run into issues because it's not a true ECU tune, it's more of a boost controller. So I'm toying with that idea, and comment below, what would you guys rather see? Should I start with a JB4, see where that can go, come back and do another dyno pull and see what kind of power basically a very simple setup would give this car? I mean, it should be pretty darn fast and even more fun than it is stock. I think I might want to go that route just to show it, just to see what it can do, and then work on shipping my ECU out, doing the full tuning, dialing it in, and then I've seen with like an E40 blend or something like that. It's about, I think, about the highest content you can do with ethanol in this car before you want to change some other things out. But get into some flex fuel stuff like that and see where this car can go. But I would assume I can get to the mid 4s at the wheels with a JB4 on it, and that should probably be a pretty fun setup. But like I said, the car doesn't crave the tune. It is so properly quick the way it is stock. I mean, it literally, I don't drive it thinking, gosh, if only we were faster. So that's something I like. I like how Toyota and BMW did the B58 motor. It's just a really good power plant. And I'll have to find some bone stock manual Supras to see what they put out to the wheels. I saw a range of 380 to 420, depending on the dyno. Me, I'm pretty much almost at 400. And torque-wise, I feel like the torque was a little less than other ones I saw. I'm not quite sure. If anything, this might be 10 pounds more than a stock one, but not really too crazy. But overall, the manual Supra, man, This has been such a blast of a car, and today's the most driving I've done in this car. Oh, man. It sounds so good. The balance is so good. Gosh, I really like this car so much. The manual is a breeze to use. It's so good at handling, and it's just got so much good smooth power to where it just feels so perfect stock. And when you make it sound way better, gosh, this car, I'm really liking this car so much. So I think that is then it. Cruising on home, got about an hour to go now. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video, putting the manual Supra on the dyno. It's cool to see. This is my base run. You did notice I put these stock wheels back on the car just because, I don't know if I already mentioned that, they're a little bit smaller in circumference and they weigh a little bit less than my aftermarket ones. And every time I do dyno the car, I'll make sure I put the stock ones on. I do still have the 15mm spacer just so it looks good. But I'm gonna do that just to keep it consistent with what a Supra is. I don't know if a little bit heavier wheel would mess up the wheel horsepower. So at least I did that, and that'll be my dyno setup just to keep things as consistent as it possibly can. But next up, I think I might look into the JB4, see where we go on that, see what this car can do. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Check out SOHO Motorsports though. They really do awesome work, especially on the Nissan Z Infinities. Really had a blast driving their Nissan Z. That was pretty fun. And they do tune Supras, so definitely check them out as well. But if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you all in the next video.